of where we come from is very important. And education exactly makes us forget where we came from. It is changing us to modern people who don't know where we came from and we don't know where we are going. And if anyone, like the previous speaker, spoke about Harvard, it does that. I was there for 15 years. And without my mother, without Palestine, I would have gotten lost. Not knowing where I came from and not knowing where I am going towards. It's another kind of knowledge. Knowing where we came from, our roots, our background, our history. The other kind of knowledge, I'm telling now small stories, but then I will take one and talk about it more. This last January, my sister has a place in Jericho, which is really very low and warm in winter. So it grows citrus fruits. And he wanted to spray the trees. He said, we have to spray the trees. He was an old farmer. I said, why do you want to spray when maybe 30 years ago, there was no spray and you did not need it? What happened? Why we need now to spray while 30 years ago we did not? He said, because earthworms knew what to do. You know the earthworm that most of us really, when we see, we crush. The earthworm is the one that nurtures the soil. And by nurturing the soil, it nurtures the trees and protects them from diseases. He said, the earthworms knew what to do. We didn't need to do anything. We killed the earthworms, so we need to substitute the earthworms by chemicals, modern chemicals, and university, of course, produced knowledge that produces these chemicals. The substitution, I don't know, do I need to keep this up or it's all right? Does it close anything? No. Because this is fine? Or I have to put it completely? No danger, nothing happened? Technology is not interfering? All right. Because I keep looking, we have enough problems with technology. We don't need also to have a laptop covering my face and covering your faces. So there is this substitution, substituting one bag by another with zippers, substituting the earthworm by chemicals, substituting the knowledge about where we came from by a knowledge that we don't know where we came from. It started with me personally at the kindergarten. I was born in Jerusalem in 1941. When I was 5 years old, my father and my mother decided, although my father had only 4 years in school and my mother never went to school, somehow they believed that sending me to school is a good idea. So they sent me to school. And I went one day and I decided I don't want to go back. Because in our home, there was a small garden, and we had chicken. And we were playing, I was playing with my sisters all the time, and I was learning a lot. And somehow, that real garden had to be substituted by a kindergarten where everything is artificial. There was no life. There were no chicken. There were no eggs. There was nothing. There were some manufactured things that we were playing with. Now, this replacement of a real garden by kindergarten stayed with me through all the institutions I went to, including Harvard, which substituted real knowledge with very artificial knowledge. And I'm talking here about artificial and real in relation to mathematics, not in relation to social aspects that may differ from one place to another, but we believe somehow that mathematics is something universal, something that is everybody will go the same path. There's only one way to know mathematics and so on. And then I discovered that my illiterate mother, non-literate mother, knew about math in a way that I cannot understand and I cannot do. She was a seamstress. A seamstress, she made thousands of dresses. Each dress fit a certain woman, a particular woman, and there were no two women out of the thousands she worked to make dresses for are similar. There were no straight lines, no angles, no circles, no parabolas, no hyperbolas. Every woman has her own geometry, her own shape. And where my mother was able to understand every woman's shape and geometry. And she did it not 70% correct, not 80% like we do in school, passing grade. There is no passing grade there. It has either to be perfectly fitting that woman or not. So there was no committee to decide whether she was a good mathematician. She was never given a certificate. But she did it in a way that I know all the words, but I can't do anything with them. So this replacement, this substitution of her math by something that I studied and I taught for many years. So I really feel, when I think about it, I was enlisted as a soldier in modern math to commit a genocide against her math. Her math was finished when she died. But it's not only education that did this. Actually, the first genocide in Palestine happened by missionaries. Not missionaries against Islam, missionaries against Christianity. My mother didn't read a word from the gospel. She didn't learn anything from any institution. There were no preachers. Her Christianity was transmitted over 20 centuries. She got whatever she knew about Christ through being transmitted from one generation to another over 20 centuries. With her death, Palestinian Christianity died in my family. She was the last Palestinian who knew Christ through 20 centuries of transmitting knowledge about what Christ was. So there was a genocide against Palestinian Christianity. Then there was a genocide committed against Palestinian knowledge almost in every respect. I was participant in these two genocides at two levels. The level of math and the level of religion. Because somehow I understood English and I read. So when missionaries came to our home, I could understand them. My mother was protected. She didn't know English. And actually, the church that she belonged to was the Greek Orthodox Church. And they were praying in Greek, so she didn't understand Greek. So she didn't get anything from English. She didn't get anything from Greek. The only thing that she knew was that was transmitted through people over generations. What I really want to talk about and stress is the kind of knowledge that cannot be put in ideas, cannot be put in words, and cannot be documented. It can only be lived. This kind of knowledge, I hope, Al-Bukhari University will take seriously. The kind of knowledge that cannot be gotten other than through living. Life is the source. When I was writing my dissertation at Harvard School of Education, the first draft I put had as references and as sources of knowledge, I put my mother, but I also put the Palestinian hen. Anyway, the committee, of course, did not accept neither And for a whole year, I didn't write anything. And I said, I'm not willing. Finally, I said, at least you accept my mother. I dropped all the other sources from life, and they accepted, so my mother stayed. But without that, I said, I'm not going to continue. So my mother stayed in the dissertation, but everything else went out, and I added it in articles that were published later, like the Palestinian Hand. But my mother, to me, was a source of knowledge that was not, to me, transmitted through words, not through ideas, but through her way of living. She knew how to raise children without reading one page. I have a doctorate in education, and I couldn't create an environment in my own home for my children the same way my mother and my father were able to. Where did they get their knowledge? And all the knowledge that I have, I read books and how to raise children and how to treat children, psychology books and this and that. And I couldn't create what they were able to create for me and for my sisters. Where did they get their knowledge? Why is this knowledge, and I won't call it indigenous, I would call it real knowledge. I would call it rooted knowledge. Rooted knowledge is, I find, much better word than indigenous or local. What do you mean local? There are roots. We have to remember where we came from. And that actually, so my mother was the one who really reminded me where I came from. So when I heard the Aborigine saying, when I get lost, I go home. Actually, in my education, I got lost. And I didn't know how to get home by myself because education did not provide that to me. And I was lucky to have a non-literate mother who didn't know English or Greek or any of the other languages that were part of her institutions. And I had Palestine. Palestine for me was like a magnifier. Right now, there is a lot of talk about Palestinian identity. I said, to hell with Palestinian identity. It doesn't represent us. What we have is, and what we had all throughout history, is Palestinian plurality. So we have to call ourselves Palestinian plurality. This is our roots. Palestine was never an identity, was never with strict borders. It always included everybody. Jerusalem, when I was young and up till I was maybe 20-some, was a place where you can find almost every kind of creature there, every kind of culture in Jerusalem. It was like a mosaic that is so beautiful. The British started the process of changing this mosaic into a zoo. There is diversity in zoos. A zoo has a lot of diversity, but they are all in cages that don't interact. Before 48, Jerusalem was a beautiful mosaic society. Now, it is not only in cages, but in cages where everyone is afraid of the other. And that is the making of modern states. When the British came, supposedly to help us build a state, and now the Palestinians are talking about the state and talking about Palestinian identity as if it is our dream. It's not. It is our nightmare. And I hope we will go on fighting for a state, but I hope we will never get it. Because once we get it, we become like everybody else, nothing. Voiceless people who are having the same, what they say, same constitution, same this, but no one has anything to say in any of these things. Okay. I want to come to the bigger picture. I'm 71 years old. In the 71 years, I experienced many